open, less controlled, but at the same time you can't be overly aggressive because you've got less riders. You cannot use up too many riders, and I think, yeah, there's arguments for, there's arguments against. I think 7 riders in the stage races does kind of open it up a little bit. You mentioned, you know, here in the home of cycling and Eurosport, we're showing the Tour of the Alps and Tour of Croatia at the moment, and today's stage was, or not just today's stage, but over the last few stages in the Tour of the Alps, it's been aggressive racing because there isn't that control of, you know, World Tour event. And I've said this quite many times in races that I think the World Tour, the point system, it doesn't work, and it has to be changed, because when you look at the Tour of the Alps, they're being aggressive because they're trying to win.
Winning is more important than, you know.
They're not trying to secure 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place or anything like that in the general classification, which is important in the Grand Tours. It's more open. It's, you know, they can turn around and say, well, I was just testing my legs, it's a preparation race. And, you know, this is why when we get racing in the Tour of Croatia, these smaller races are probably sometimes better than some of the World Tour races, because it is a little bit more open. We don't know some of the riders. You know, I don't know every rider that's in the race today. I'm hoping there'll be some surprises, and it's these things that makes cycling a little bit more interesting than just seeing the World Tour races, the World Tour teams, and you know, all being controlled. And
so the speculative attack we saw from Matej Mohoric yesterday would have been less likely in a World Tour event, where Bonifacio might have been a nailed-on certainty for a top 10 finish, which would be good points.
I don't think it would be possible for Mohoric to do that yesterday, because there'd be more control of the race. They'd be going somewhat faster, and there'd be more control, and going at, you know, 1 or 2 kilometres an hour faster with the, you know, stronger teams. But I think Mohoric, you know, he probably put his hands up and said yesterday he did it because, you know, with the smaller teams, there's less power, only 3 World Tour teams. There was opportunities there, and any pro rider wants an opportunity to win, and everybody wants to put their hands up at any time, whether it's in the Tour of Croatia, whether it's in the Tour de France. But I think it may be a little bit easier in the Tour of Croatia, and in some cases a win's a win. And for Grosso here to win yesterday, that's a big deal for Nippo Vini Fantini. Okay, in the scale of things, it's an HC event, it's not a World Tour event, and I just think it's, you know, when this year with 7 riders in all the races, you can't. It's a wee bit hesitant, because you cannot always put a rider in a breakaway, or putting riders on the front, because if you put 1 rider on the front or 2 riders on the front, you burn them up and you're down to, you know, 5 riders for the final. So there's a little bit more thought process to it. But does it open it up? Yeah. Having less riders in a race does open it up. Does it make it more exciting? Well, it depends on the course, and depends on the riders as well, and how they want to race it. Do shorter stages make it interesting? Today's in the Alps, shorter stage. Wow, it was, you know, all guns blazing, uphill, downhill, and it was great. We don't necessarily always want to see the big long races, but I love Milan San Remo, which is you know, the longest classic, and it's the length of the race that really kind of sorts it out. If it was 200 kilometres, then it would be open to pretty much anybody. So it kind of sorts it out towards the end, and I think.
So where do you stand on the shortening stages? Is it about variety? Is it about having, you know, a selection of long, short, medium length stages? Then that helps to, you know, add spice.
I think if it's hilly, shorter, hillier stages work for me, rather than the long 200, 220 kilometre hilly stages that we've had in the past in the Grand Tours. But 200 kilometres, 220 kilometres in a flattish stage kind of makes no real difference. You know, they'll still race it, because there's none of the, you know, the big climbs in between. But yeah, I don't think the big mountain stages are required in Grand Tours. I think the shorter, the faster they race them, the more entertaining it is. I hope that answers your question.
I think that was a comprehensive, detailed analysis of the situation, and I'm
That's just
quite
my
sure
thoughts.
there's more than one person out there that would agree with you. I think if you were to sort of sum it up, a lot of the teams weren't that happy when the idea of reducing the rosters in the races
But some teams
was introduced.
didn't reduce rosters. They just rest riders, because that's the other thing they look at is with the reduced riders in teams in the Grand Tours and all the races, then they can afford to send teams to do a job rather than to fill the places, sort of thing. But I'm all for it. I'm all for moving forward in cycling, but it's the riders that make it more interesting and more exciting. It's not about the parcours and various the distances and things like that. It's all about the teams, how they want to race it. But if you bring them back to 6 riders even, they're a wee bit apprehensive about maybe committing riders, and that's where you have the fors and against there.
Yeah, certainly I think it's been universally welcomed. I think that the fans, the viewers at the roadside, those watching on television, they've really enjoyed those short, sharp stages in the long stage races, and indeed in these week-long ones as well. They've been a welcome addition. It's not going to feel like a particularly short stage for these guys, especially this man. Bozic in the break for the 3rd day in a row. He's got a hat-trick of appearances on TV. He's got a white jersey of leader of the Young Rider competition. He's marching towards virtual leader on the road as well. He's just 9 seconds down, but the big long lump of a climb to come at the back end will surely catch him out and cause a bit of a problem. Still sitting at 4 minutes and 21 seconds. Long way to go. Another quick break, get that out of the way, and back to you after these. Down to the final 45 kilometres for the leaders. Meanwhile, just over 4.5 minutes back, the peloton spread wide across the road, and fundamentally quite a few riders in there are soft pedalling. It's that middle section of this race, fast and furious to begin with. The breakaway group has established itself. Now it's about monitoring, maintaining, managing, and understanding exactly what can be achieved when the road starts to rise, with just over 27 kilometres remaining. Trek Segafredo looking after things on the front of the peloton as always, with Fumiyuki Beppu, 75th overall at 40 seconds, but very much on domestic duties for the team today. He's sitting at the front of the peloton and doing a very solid job indeed. Port of Baška Voda, one of 2 sport and nautical ports in the municipality of the Baška Voda. Finest restaurants to be found around here, along with other facilities for boaters, etc. It's all about pursuits aquatic in this part of the universe, as you might expect. The bike is very important as well, and growing in importance, I think, for Croatians, really buying into the bicycle, not just as a utility vehicle, but as something to enjoy sport. And well, they've brought plenty of riders into this event as well.
But you say that it is important, cycling in this part of the world. One of the sponsors, Valamar, the hotel chain. In fact, I was quite lucky after being involved with the Tour of Croatia over the last kind of couple of years. I got to know the race director, Vladimir Mikhailovic, a former rider himself with Liquigas, and after seeing the sights and the sounds, it's the same with the Tour of Turkey. When we went there, I went back on holiday, took my family, and this is what it's all about. It's putting areas like this on the map. And I came back after the Giro d'Italia. I came back for a day and flew back out to Porridge and stayed at one of the Valamar hotels. Absolutely beautiful. And talking to the organiser about possibly going out. And Valamar have actually built a new hotel, and it's a bike hotel. I think next year they're starting there's a Sportive starting next year, and they're starting the Sportive next year. And I think it's the Queen stage of the Tour of Croatia. But Valamar Hotel's got to sponsor the race. Have got a bike hotel, so you come to Croatia. There's roads, mountain bikes, all the sort of bikes you can have to enjoy your holiday, if that's your thing. Not like maybe these gentlemen that were just kind of sat on the beach there. not wanting to do. Some people go on holiday for a bit of an adventure and to ride bikes and do things. Other people just go and want to relax.
I'll read a Robert Ludlum novel and yes, just move from one part of the towel to the other part of the towel for 2 weeks. It's never been my thing, but I do understand the attraction by times. I tell you what, there's a lot of riders out there would quite fancy that for a vacation at the moment, but for all that, it's not such a bad job to be doing in these kind of weather conditions, is it? As they head inland very shortly, the breakaway group already starting to find the gradient gripping as they head towards it, and they're starting to step on a little bit at the front of the peloton. Is this a change of tactic, or are we just finding Nippo Vinifantini, I think, want to try and get involved with the pace making? There's the overall race leader from Nippo Vinifantini, Edward Grossu. How much is he going to enjoy things as things start to step up ever so slightly? Just sitting in front of him is the aforementioned Martin Mohoritz, an imposing figure, isn't he? Really can generate enormous watts. Brave effort to try and hang on for that victory yesterday with the late attack. Looked at one stage as if it might have a decent chance of happening. If it's not the second intermediate sprint coming up in the next 4 kilometres that could well be changing the character of what's going on in the bunch at the moment.
Well, with the breakaway in front is absolutely no relevance at all with the bonus seconds. So it's just a case of, you need to honour your the jersey, and Trek Segafredo were right at the front, and I think they're happy with the situation. Both World Tour teams of Trek Segafredo and Bahrain Merida are happy with this situation. They know it's a big GC day, but nice to see Nippo Vinifantini just putting a rider up there. And like we mentioned before, Grossu been in that jersey, you have to honour it, and he'll enjoy the day. Okay, he's not going to climb this mountain at the finish and hold on to it, but you have to enjoy the day, and the team want to enjoy it as well. So just putting a token rider towards the front and helping out the chase. Still a healthy 4.5 minutes, and I think they may hit this climb with about 4 minutes advantage, but 27.7 kilometres in length, hard finish. It's going to be very difficult to kind of hold the peloton off, because this is the day, or one of the days in the Tour of Croatia, that a lot of the climbing talent have been waiting for.
Yes, that's the nature of stage racing, isn't it? It's about hiding for as much as possible and then exploding into action. So much and such long days in the saddle, and it's about waiting day after day, staying out of trouble, staying safe, trying to keep your powder dry, and make sure that you've got something to offer when the big appointment comes. Beppu continues to set the tempo. He's got to set it again, indeed. He's on the front, and he's done this with such great ability for so many years now. Really established himself as a very, very worthwhile domestique to have in stage races. And Beppu enjoying his extended career at the top level. Van der Leijke in the breakaway group, so a little bit of a natter with the Rompot team car. Got his instructions, the 26-year-old Dutchman, winner of Kruisbreis Elites back in 2013. So the bunch are just leaving the 5 riders in the breakaway group, just dangle out on a piece of string that is about 4 minutes and 20 seconds long. It's Trek Segafredo setting the tempo on the front with a little bit of assistance from Nippo Vinifantini. You can see we're starting to rise. The road's starting to grip. You'd hardly notice it from the way that the riders pedal across it with such ease, but the topography, these great helicopter shots, these great big sweeping landscapes, extraordinary Westcam operated cameras. Just reading William Fotheringham's excellent book, A Sunday in Hell, about the famous film of the same name that depicted the 1976 Paris-Roubaix, and he goes into some considerable detail about the first use of that Westcam gyroscopically controlled camera in a helicopter.
Well, don't say too much, because I'm still waiting for mine to pop through the letterbox.
Oh, so. Well, I don't want to. Well, first of all, it's an excellent book, so yeah, I hope that's not a spoiler. And Mark de Meer wins the race. I hope that's
Oh, come on, Declan.
Yes, indeed, the late great Mark de Meer, and well, that movie really was an inspiration to a generation, wasn't it? But it's the detail of how that particular event was filmed, and what an extraordinary film it was, and what an inspiration it was, I think, to filmmakers as well as to generations of cyclists since then. But the images that we get from the helicopter, produced by that Westcam operated machinery, it's been much refined over the years. It's much smaller. Once upon a time, back in the 70s, the camera and the peripheral equipment used to control it weighed over 90 kilograms. It's much more svelte these days. But the manner in which the helicopters give us those images transformed the live transmissions of cycling. Around about 1990, 88, 90, that's when it really started to change in the way they demonstrated it to us. And here's some more great crystal clear helicopter images, and Croatia really has beautiful sunlight, beautiful light across the Dalmatian coast this afternoon, doesn't it? Inside 40 kilometers to go now. It's a group of 5 up front, controlling this and managing this 4.25 minute advantage. The intermediate sprint looks like Bozic is going to just pinch those few seconds again, so that's 6 seconds gained on the day. That puts him 6 seconds behind, plus what he's gained on the road, so certainly the virtual leader of this race for what that's worth. It's not going to be worth a lot, I think, when they head into the climb proper in the next 10 kilometers or so. But Bozic is enjoying his moment in the sun, making the most of the opportunity. On the front, Nick van der Leijke from the Rompot squad, as I've said. Hands over to Nikolai Bruckner, the Dane, who didn't have a great start to the week. He crashed on the first stage, but jumped up, got back in the fray. He's made of sterner stuff, and I think he's enjoying the move over to pro-continental status this year. Won a couple of stages of the Ross in the last few years, actually.
He's won 3 stages over the years, I think.
3, is it? Yeah. At least 2 of them, yeah. And it's taken him a little while actually to step up to the paid ranks, and but he's got a pretty good consistent level of scoring victories at continental level, and that, I think, bodes well and suggests that he's going to have a pretty strong career in the paid ranks.
To see a little bit of movement now in the peloton. They know the climb will come through this town, of course, and obviously they've been doing their homework. They just want to kind of stay out of trouble. A little bit of speed now, teams coming up, and obviously some pinch points coming up in this town here, so they just want to be in line and make sure they're well towards the fore, and want to hit this climb. It's still a fair way to go till we hit this climb, but they just want to keep out of trouble.
There's the Marian Shrine of Vepritz on the Adriatic Highway, established by Bishop Juraj Karic in 1909, best known for its altar in a natural cave. And obviously a very popular pilgrimage for visitors across the years. Dima at the back of the group. It's time for dinner. Nick van der Leijke goes through his musette, and he'll see just how satisfied he is with the selection that the Soigneurs have lovingly toiled to create for him. Taking the opportunity to throw the bottles to the side just ahead of the opportunity to take in on fresh supplies. They tend to, where possible, throw the bottles towards spectators or team helpers, knowing that 9 times out of 10 they'll be scooped up within seconds, and if not, of course, there are special litter collection zones along the way where the riders again, they all well, pretty much all buy into the idea of dispensing with the unwanted bottles, gel wrappers, etc. in those zones. Yeah,
the one thing I would advise them not to do is, like the rider in the black there from the breakaway was sitting no hands, going through his feed bag and getting it organised. You tend to find that in feed zones, when riders are in front, they take the feed bags, they maybe drop bottles, or someone tries to get a bottle and they drop bottles. The last thing you want is riding no hands is a bottle arriving in front of you. I've seen it happen so many times, and I've actually shouted out to a couple of people that have grabbed their bars at the last time. So in a feed zone, I would advise not to take your hands off your handlebars.
Sweep through it a little bit later on. The leaders now, 4¼ minutes. It's holding steady at the moment. Welcome back to the Dalmatian coast on stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia. We're in Kačić Square in the city of Makarska as we wait for the bunch to make their way past. They'll be following a group of 5 riders, controlling that advantage of just over 4 minutes at the moment. The riders are trying to step on it heading into the foot of the finishing climb. The summit finished today, the first general classification opportunity for the riders. The feed bags flying left and right as the bunch behind the breakaway group are picking up that extra sustenance. That's what's going to get them up to the top of this hill. The Astana squad stepping to the front into the feed zone. Always sensible really to, if possible, bring your GC riders up towards the front as you head into the feed zone.
For sure, you have to keep out of trouble, and best place to be is near the front. I think it's more importantly, the sports directors have already said to the riders, obviously make sure you hit this climb in the front, and some of these climbs tend to get a little bit narrow, and you want to put your GC contender right towards the front, so you can also see the Aqua Blue rider of Connor Dunn bringing up their climbing talent. And they've got a couple of riders to look at, especially Daniel Pearson. Daniel Pearson just finished, it was a couple of years ago, just outside the top 10 here, so obviously a couple of years stronger. See what you can do today.
Just a little moment when the gears slipped a little bit. Did he go down onto the small ring? I'm not exactly sure. And then, whoa, there's a car on the right-hand side as well. Nikolai Brockner, in time-honoured fashions, well, makes his feelings known. And these riders are just used to closed roads. They assume that no vehicle is going to be there.
Well, that's the closed roads. You can look at all the junctions. You can put motorbikes and cars in front. I've worked in race direction before in the Tour of Britain, and you cannot anticipate the race control vehicle is just in front. You cannot anticipate someone just parked at the side of the road, coming down, and just getting in the car and trying to reverse out, which they're doing at the moment. It's
part of it is the culture, education. The understanding,
yes.
Isn't it? Yeah, there isn't that much pro racing in this part of the world.
Exactly. So, and it's the same. I've seen a big difference when I started going to the Tour of Turkey. They never, they looked at you as if you were an alien, riding your bike, because we obviously took our bikes out there. But nowadays they stand and encourage, and I've even seen it in Britain. Instead of standing in a queue, looking at, what's that happen? They're actually getting out the cars and taking pictures and doing things. So it's just an education process, and very difficult to leaflet as much as you can do in television and radio. And it takes a few years to educate everybody that these are the procedures. If you see this, if you see the flashing lights and cars and things like that, then obviously a bike race is coming by. So yeah, we've seen it in the Tour of Flanders where there was a car on the course. These races
even in Belgium.
Yeah, these roads are closed. Everybody knows about it, but it just takes one person.
Yeah, well, it's a rare thing that you're not a bike fan in that part of the world, and even those that aren't bike fans tend to buy in. They understand that it's very much part of the culture. In Croatia, though, it's an evolving sport. For all that this event really has ramped up in importance and understanding among the community over the last 4 years, it's now at our category standard in the European Tour. That puts it one level below World Tour level. So it's rising in importance and value to the squads, to the teams, the world teams, and indeed amongst the general public. It's starting to move into the consciousness, not just one for the aficionados. Yeah, we've got the orange teams racing each other at the moment. It's a Rompot on the left with the black stripes, and CCC Sprande Polkowice, their Polish counterparts, on the right-hand side of picture, left-hand side of the road. And it's all about making sure you've got your riders in perfect position when the road starts to rise. And this is, riders are going to see that as their agenda. That's their moment, that's their finish line for many of those riders.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be a lot of riders that, the job done at the bottom of the climb. There'll be other riders that will try to get up, halfway up the climb. But this group, pretty much all together, the peloton, that is, but it explodes as soon as we hit this climb. And, with 27.7 kilometres uphill, this is where the climbers will come to the fore, and we'll start to see, who's on form, who is interested in trying to win this year's Tour of Croatia.
Long maritime and fishing tradition around these parts. The enchanting ambience of the Tuchepi harbour, it says here. And who would disagree with that? It's absolutely gorgeous. Plenty of inlets, plenty of harbours, plenty of marinas. If you have an interest in things aquatic, life aquatic, then Croatia should be a destination. Now we've got Bardiani CSF moving up. You mentioned Conor Dunn, the tall, imposing figure of the Irish rider, with the aqua blue squad, and several of their riders gravitating towards the front in the blue jersey. But it's a real race, isn't it? It's like heading into a Berg in Tour of Flanders or something. There's a real sense that this one matters. Israel Cycling Academy squad in the centre of shot, the white and blue jerseys. Bardiani CSF orange and green. With ambition, Chris Neelan sitting towards the back of their lineup. And unfortunately we're suffering from a little bit of picture breakup. Such a disappointment. You can sense that things are starting to boil up. The action is starting to reach a crescendo of importance for many of those riders in there. Try and pick up these pictures very shortly. Hopefully we'll get the breakaway group, and indeed we do. We picked them just into the lower slopes of this climb. It indicates that it starts with 27.2 kilometers remaining in the stage. Those 5 riders can tell you, as if you didn't already know, that the climb starts before that. And well, it's interesting to see who are the riders that have the ambition. This is the local man, the Croatian Frankovic, Mateo Frankovic, who's sitting on the front for Meridiana Kamen. He'll know this road well.
Yeah, the thing is, when we come into the climb, it goes a little bit narrow, but just after a few hundred metres, it goes into a kind of decent road. So I think the panic in the peloton is just making sure that pinch point, you have your GC or your climber well towards the fore, so that when you get into this pinch point and it starts to stretch out a little bit, he's in a good position.
Yeah, quite noticeable that Frankovic was up for racing. He was eager, and peachy keen, as indeed was Nick van der Leijck of the Rompot squad. Less so Jan Bosic, who's in the break for the 3rd day in a row. And as you mentioned, Brian, he's probably starting to feel it a little bit. It's got to be testing the endurance of a 21-year-old rider to go in the break. And the 2 longest stages of the race, of course, were the first 2 stages, and Bosic is on the blower saying, yep, it's all going south for me. I'm just going to enjoy the scenery until the bunch pick me up.
Well, if he's come into this race to show what he can do, he's certainly done that. That's tick the box. And with the World Tour teams in this race, why not? Why not look at a rider like that for the future? And I know that I did it in the past. I had opportunities in the likes of the Tour of Britain, and I tried my hardest to show what I could do. And when you're in a leader of a competition, and you get in the breakaways, you get mentioned. And when the sports directors are talking about, I remember this rider or that rider, and they're looking for young talent, why not?
Well, we're on this OR category climb up to Sveti Jura, that's St. Jura. And the only 3 World Tour teams in this event, but no surprise they're dominating the front of this peloton at the moment with the
well, that was Bonifacio at the front there. Stage 1 winner crashed yesterday, came to the front, and no surprise, they're used to the kind of rough and tumble, getting themselves into position, doing his job early on, because as we've already kind of talked about, only 7 riders in each team. The sprinters can't afford to just kind of sit back like they did possibly in the past. They have to get involved and support their team.
Well, Nick van der Leijck is up for it, isn't he, today? winner, as I said, of Kreispreis Elites back in 2013. Nice third place finish in the Tour de Fjords in 2016, and third place finish in the Volta Limburg Classic as well last year. So that doesn't indicate that 27 kilometers of climbing would be to his liking, but certainly he's useful up the short hills. Will the longer ones be to his play to his talents and abilities? Riders already going south, and Frankovic is hanging on a little bit longer than I thought a few moments ago. It just seemed as if he was starting to drop off the wheel, but he managed to just race back into it. And as I said, this first 18 kilometers of the climb at an average of 6.6%, so it's definitely a testing climb.
Oh, definitely. It's been an interesting one as well. But what you will notice in this type of race, in a World Tour race, as soon as we hit this climb, a lot of the riders, that'll be it for them. They'll start drifting back in groups, but not this type of level of race. And the riders that are riding, they'll fight. A lot of the continental riders won't think of the days to come, and just ride up with in a group. The World Tour teams, you can see it now. Everybody, the small gaps, everybody's fighting. Well, I would suggest that in the back group there, there's a few of the sprinters, a few of the kind of World Tour riders, and starting to form a kind of gruppetto, started to form groups. This is what you get in World Tour races, but in another level of races, everybody fights to try and stay there. And at the end of the day, as long as you finish within in the time limit, there's no difference between finishing 100th and 110th, only 3 minutes between. You just get in a group, get up there and save yourself for another day.
Well, it is the professional job, isn't it, to make sure that you've got the energy to be able to do your job again tomorrow.
That's what everybody forgets. Everybody forgets. And when you're a pro bike rider and you're riding a foreign land, say the Tour of Croatia, and your friends and your family are looking at the result and things like that, and they see you're 150th and things like that. Well, it's about doing your job, and your job is to do what you can during the stage. If you're not a climber, if you're looking after your GC contender, do your job and get to the finish. Just get inside the time limit, because that 10-15 minutes of saving that effort could count for the next few days. So it's all about conserving that energy. And everybody that's been to a pro race, likes of the the Tour de France, and sees the gruppetto at 30 minutes down, these people have got to do the job again and again and again every day. And they're not gifted climbers. They just have to get to the top of this climb using as less energy as possible, because their day's done. They're not obviously one of the GC contenders or climbers of the team, so it doesn't really matter about fighting all the way up this climb and trying to finish 8 minutes down instead of 10 minutes down. You will pay for that later on in this race.
The short stages can be a little bit challenging in terms of the time limit, especially with a summit finish as well. A lot of climbing during the day. They start with a climb. Those days can be very, very difficult for some of the sprinters, for some of the beefier riders in the bunch. But for Nick van der Leijke, that's not going to be an issue or a consideration. He's riding solo. Will it be to glory? Well, he's only got 1:19 on the group behind, on the main group. It's showing that it includes the race leader, but I'm not so sure that's still the case. Where is Edward Michael Grossu on the road at the moment? The overall race leader, surely not going to be a contender for the victory on this climb. But Nick van der Leijke looks very much at ease. I can assure you he doesn't feel at ease right now, but he looks like he's certainly in control of his effort.
Yeah, looking at the front, Laurent Didier seems to be setting the tempo. Manuele Boaro just behind in second place with 2 or 3 other Bahrain Merida riders. They won this event last year with Vincenzo Nibali, but you can just see the peloton whittled down quite quickly now. That we're only a few kilometres into this climb, with about 50 riders now left in the main peloton, about a minute and a half behind the leader. It's with 26 kilometres to go of climbing. There's still a long way to go, so no surprise that there's a fairly kind of large bunch, and the tempo just been set at the front by the World Tour teams.
Trek Segafredo, who they're looking after today, with their best placed rider is Gianluca Brambilla, sitting 17th overall at 22 seconds. I can tell you that there are 88 riders within a minute of the race lead, and there's a massive group of riders just over 20 seconds back. So it's if you've got the climbing legs, this is the big opportunity to radically revolutionised that general classification sheet. It's sure to be significantly altered at the conclusion of this evening. Where's Nick van der Leijke going to end up on it? At the moment he's 4 minutes and 52 seconds down, so not any threat on general. For him it's all about trying to get the stage victory. And that would be an impressive achievement. At the moment he's starting to stretch his advantage, and I think that tells you just what a long climb this is.
Yeah, I think the race into the climb, and most of the time the peloton, they kind of bringe into the climb until they get a steady tempo. They're well in control. There's this rider is in front, and from Rompots, Nick van der Leijke, the 26-year-old Dutch rider. In fact, the whole team of Rompot is Dutch, not just the riders, but also the staff. And it's just getting into a rhythm. There's no panic in the peloton. I think just a couple of riders, one from Trek Segafredo, Dilly and Boiro from Bahrain Merida, are just kind of riding on the front, and you can just see he just came into a bit of a plateau, put it into his big ring, the outer chain ring, and pushing on a little bit. This climb starts to get a lot harder towards the top, but it's just a kind of tempo climb. The first part, everybody kind of bringes into it until we get a group, which we've got now. Things will settle down into a climb, because that's all you have to think in the back of your head. As soon as you hit a climb, some of the hardest parts about the climb are the first kind of kilometre or 2 kilometres until it settles down.
Just under 25 kilometres remaining now on stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia, and it's starting to boil up towards the hot conclusion to the event that we expected, as the Bahrain Merida squad, with Bonifacio close to the front and Trek Segafredo not so far away as well. They're making sure they're playing a watching brief and maintaining and managing the gap to this man, sole leader up front, Nick van der Leijke, one of the 5 riders from the early breakaway group. He's dispensed with the services of all of his temporary cohorts, and now they're heading back into the sanctuary, or back to the clutches of the peloton. Indeed, 1 or 2 will already have been dispensed with and pushed back out the back of this slimmed down group now. 129 riders began the day. We'd one non-finisher already in the shape of Eugenio Alifacci, who crashed early on, so we send our best wishes to him. We hope the Trek Segafredo rider makes a quick recovery. Meanwhile, his teammates are racing on with ambition. But right now they're setting a tempo that is only really holding the advantage to those riders up front, but they really did charge into the bottom of that hill, and at one stage it was 4 minutes 20, and then almost in a flash it's suddenly just a minute and a half advantage for van der Leijke.
Yeah, just finding the rhythm. Everybody normally gets excited, pushing and shoving, and the excitement, the adrenaline is going in the run up to a climb, and you always have to kind of tell yourself, look, it'll settle down soon, and it has settled down. It's settled down into a rhythm. They're more than happy that this sole rider has got a minute and a half's advantage, and Laurent Didier is setting the tempo just behind for Trek Segafredo. They know there's still a long way to go. 24 kilometres for the leader, possibly 25 kilometres for the peloton behind, and majority of the hardest parts of this climb are further up.
Yeah, very little thought for the future at the moment for Nick van der Leijke. He's just trying to control the power, and he'll be consulting with his power meter below him. But a lot of riders just like to ride on feel as well, don't they? Just like to feel the effort, and sometimes if you look at the power, you can become a little bit disheartened if it's not the number you were hoping to see, given the effort that you're putting out. So riders will often just ride on their perceived exertion levels, and they're often just as accurate, or in some ways a better way to ride. Stem watching, as they say, has become as a hot topic over recent years. Not everyone does it, but the numbers are available to those riders, and it has certainly transformed not just training, but the rhythm of the races in some ways, and how riders manage their resources throughout a long day in the saddle. Surface under wheel has changed a little bit, hasn't it? These roads don't get anything like the same attention that the coastal roads do, as you might expect, and so we rise up, heading towards the heavens. The peloton behind have reached that slight plateau level that that part of the road where the big ring is something to be employed, and they're making very impressive progress because the road is still rising. Idea face is starting to hurt. Caharal, Israel Cycling Academy. Just a couple of the teams, the Holovesco Citadel as well, are teams that are looking to benefit from the pacemaking of the World Tour teams. Interesting that Astana wanted to get in a good position for the start of that climb, but they've become a little bit more anonymous since then. One of 3 World Tour teams. Now they got the riders. And if he looks down to his right,
yeah, you could see he's just looking down to his right there. You can see the peloton behind. Important to see, you know, what the peloton were doing, and I think he got a brief glimpse there that you know, there was a smaller peloton, maybe about 50 riders, and you know, it was just the race was now kind of settled. We come up this part of the climb, come back onto the kind of main road here. We've got Trek Segafredo riding towards the front with Barre and Merida, but these are just the, you know, the small slopes. There's still one rider just in front as well, which the peloton will sweep up soon. But you know, this is still 23 kilometres to go to the top, and you know, no surprise that the World Tour teams are just setting a tempo, and this man out doing a very good job today, but I don't think it'll be good enough for a stage win.
No, he's not been given too much of a long leash today, has he? The young Dutchman in control of his effort, but the cadence is starting to just slip a little bit. Like it. Been with this squad now. This is his 3rd season with the Rompot in Pro Continental level. Before that, he was with Team Lotto NL Jumbo, which formerly was known. He did a 2-year deal with them, formerly known as Belkin Pro Cycling, and before that, he was with the Rabobank Development Squad, the Continental level team. Has propelled so many Dutch riders into Pro Continental and World Tour status. He's around at Continental level since 2010 and into the paid ranks in 2014. This is his fifth full season as a professional rider, and Van der Leijck at 26 is coming into his best years. Now, for the first time, we're starting to see the gap drop a little bit, and I think that's a factor of the fact that the gradient has clearly just become that bit more arduous just in the last few moments.
Yeah, onto a slightly smaller roads.
And that was a very difficult moment. That hasn't helped his cause at all, and it just shows you, I did mention that the surface has changed. A little bit of gravel on the inside, change of gradient, and just trying to grab a little bit on the inside of that hairpin. You do see some riders like to ride around the outside of a hairpin because it's a smoother gradient. Let's get a look at this again, Brian.
Yeah, just seen it again. It's just maybe a slightly lack of concentration. He goes into that corner, and just the camber of the road, he kind of leans into it, and you know, obviously his kind of wheels slip a little bit. So I think it's just a little bit of fatigue now, kind of settling in a little bit. He is losing some time. The gradient is starting to get a little bit more difficult, and it was just a small mistake. These things happen. You know, I've gone into corners even now at training, and you know, the wheels have slid a little bit, just gone into it too sharp. But this is a peloton now hitting the same corner, and I think Boaro roughly doing the same thing there, and no problems. He was just in a small enough gear and just pedaling away. The riders nowadays are riding, even myself, I've changed my chain rings. Luckily I've got some support by Rotor, the Spanish company, and they've sent me some rings, 36, 50 outside ring, 36 inside ring, and most of these riders, you can see Boaro setting a very good tempo, and it's just a small gear these riders are using now.
Well, it's not big enough to prevent the attacks. They're just starting to come inside. A minute advantage for our lone leader up front now. Caharal on the attack, and that will be at most a little bit of irritation really for Trek Segafredo and for Boaro of the Bahrain Merida squad, because Caharal just They've reacted to that one. They've decided to, rather than just set the tempo they were setting, they have actually just upped it ever so slightly. And Van der Leijke looks to his left. He's been through that hairpin just a few moments ago, and he can see that that group, well, it's a lot closer to him than it was, and he knows that his days are numbered, his minutes are numbered at this point. Out front on this third stage, Nick van der Leijke has been a brave effort, a brave resistance, but it's coming down in chunks, and I think that morale, it will have been a little bit morale sapping, won't it, that little dodgy moment on the inside of that curb.
Yeah, just put him out his rhythm a little bit, and no surprise that we're on this climb. And you find this in long climbs that you know, a lot of riders can't just kind of sit there and ride tempo. They feel good, and when you see Boaro just kind of riding small gears right in the front, just pedaling away nice and easy. And the trouble with a lot of these kind of smaller teams is holding them back from attacking. We're still 21 kilometres to go to the finishing line. Just hold them back a little bit, and you know, let the other teams dictate the pace, and try and save a little bit of that energy. But it's difficult in a climb. As a climber, all you want to do is you know, light it up, go on the attack. But sometimes when you go on the attack, you kind of pay for it a little bit later. So it's just controlling some of these riders. As you say, Caja just went on the attack there, and a reaction from the World Tour teams. If they want to go on the attack, we'll bring you back just as quick.
Almost instant response from the World Tour teams, and well, he was put back in his box, wasn't he, without too much difficulty. And as you say, you wonder what the point of it was. Once upon a time we talked about the great exploits, about the long range attacks, and as you say, the climbers like to jump right and left. There's a different character to the racing these days, though. You sense riders understand exactly what they're capable of doing, and the teams behind are less likely to react to an attack. They're more likely to maintain that steady rhythm, confident that the other rider who has attacked won't be able to maintain that pace, and is going to inevitably come back like almost like they were on the end of a piece of string.
Well, I think it's a little bit easier to predict what's happening in a World Tour race, because it's so controlled, and you know, when we look at these races, it is a little bit more unpredictable. And I think looking at Flèche Wallonne the other day, it was a little bit unpredictable, because it was the Valverde going for yet another one in Flèche Wallonne, and the other teams, you're deciding, well, we're not going to give you it that easy. We're not going to allow Movistar just to control the whole race. So, you know, we had more attacking race, and then we had Sagan deciding on the back of Tom Bonin's comments about, you know, you're always looking for other people to do that. He went early in Paris-Roubaix and decided the win himself. So I like it when racing, obviously as a commentator and a fan, when it's a less predictable, rather than kind of more robotic and things like that, which we've seen in the past. And I think that's why they're trying to kind of drop riders and team, make it a little bit unpredictable. But I think that the further down the ladder you get in races, racing can be unpredictable. You know, the World Tour teams have got a job in a place, and you know, it is a bit more controlled, the racing, when you get a bit further up. So yeah, it's not the last attack we're going to see, but you could just see how easy the World Tour teams were at you know, bringing that attack back by Caja.
Won't be the last one, but when's the next one going to come? Because we've still got 20.5 kilometres to go. This is a beast of a climb. This is as tough as these riders will have seen this season, and they're not going to see too many tougher than that between now and the end of the year, as one of the Gazprom riders towards the back is really labouring in his efforts. And I tell you what, those signals aren't good, are they? But if you can just get through the next 10 kilometres or so, then things start to ease a little bit, for a little while at any rate, and then the final few kilometres really are testing. Van der Leijke is still hanging on, still looking around and looking at the group behind, and trying to gauge exactly how long before he's swept up, and wonder what sort of strength he's going to have when it comes. Presumably this is all he's got. He's been out front for much of the afternoon. If he had more, he'd be giving it. He's coming down in chunks at the moment now, isn't it? Down to 20 seconds.
I think he's more interested when he was looking down there to see that Peter Winning was up towards the front, and I think that's their man for today. At the front of the peloton behind is Nicholas Egg, and he's riding at the front for Brambilla, sitting in second place there. Switsu for the Bahrain Merida team is sitting in fourth place, so he's more than happy there. And Holowescu, I'm just trying to think, that might be Eisenhardt, Taylor Eisenhardt, that's up there towards the front. He's a rider that has done well in a lot of the American races. Quite a flamboyant kind of rider, but
it's like a super surfer or something, isn't it?
Yeah, looks like a Californian surfer, but in some of the races, like in a kind of Utah and things like that, he has done well. So, you know, a bit of a climber. And yeah, it would be a big coup if young Eisenhardt could do a ride today.
Yeah, held the lead for a while in Tour of Utah last year, did TJ Eisenhardt, and he is a character, as Brian says. Absolutely loves it, seems so relaxed and brings an altogether different dimension to his racing. And tell you what, he's a serious athlete as well, and he will be there or thereabouts, I think, for quite a while on this climb. Wants to put it in amongst the World Tour teams, show what he's capable of. Holowescu Citadel squad are enjoying their move over to European racing this year. They had a man in the break earlier on, Nikolai Brockner, the Dane. And, they've got TJ Eisenhardt going to try his luck a little bit later on. Nick van der Leijke is, well, just moments from being swept up by the peloton. Has he throttled back a little bit and perhaps thought about saving a little bit of energy? Will there be anything he can give to Peter Weening, or is he all used up at this moment? Going to get a very, very quick illustration of that. I think it's probably the latter. Inside 20 kilometers to go. That means we've got just almost 20 kilometers of climbing remaining on this final hill, the climb to the summit at the finish of the third stage of Tour of Croatia. And riders in the lead group sweep up the final rider from the early breakaway group. A brave resistance from Nick van der Leijke, but he has been retained by the peloton, and he's going to go backwards now as the Trek Segafredo squad trying to get something organised. Gianluca Brambilla will be the man asked to do a job for them. Will that be the case? We'll see. And Bahrain Merida, and that's an interesting decision, isn't it? Sutso has decided to go and up the tempo a little bit and see which riders are going to be able to follow this one, and it's put the cat among the pigeons a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, he rode well in this race last year, and obviously he's decided that he doesn't want to wait, that you know, he wants to kind of test some riders out here, and you know, this is the catch for the last breakaway rider, Nick van der Leijke, the 26-year-old Dutch rider. But the veteran of Bahrain Merida has decided that you know, he feels good, he wants to kind of test himself and put a bit of tempo on. Brambilla followed there, but it's broken the front group up, and slowly but surely this group has been whittled down.
Sutsu has another little look around. Do you think he's riding for himself, or, you know, with a couple of top 10 finishes in Giro d'Italia, he's certainly the rider of pedigree on the Bahrain Merida squad, or could he be perhaps interested in one of his teammates? Could it be Novak, perhaps?
Novak, I think, is still there, kind of hanging in a little bit, but I think Svitsov is thinking of it himself a little bit more. He is capable of going the whole way. Strong rider.
The beautiful sights in the ribbon of switchback roads that is placing such a demand on the riders. Nature park of Biokovo, a mountain with its roots in the sea, and its forehead in the clouds is how they like to describe it. Heading up to 1,762 meters above sea level at Sveti Jure. What an amazing panorama view over the islands and the coastline. The Adriatic that is provided from the top of this mountain. That's what is the reward for these riders when they finally make it to the top. Fully 18 kilometers remaining, and the signals not too good at the moment, are they, for Jonathan Lastra? Toiling a little bit, still in that group. Just in front of him, Kozataev of the Astana squad, also sitting in the wheels, but it's a vulnerable position towards the back of the group. If someone lets a wheel go, you have to make a little bit of an extra effort. Eisenhardt, very animated, jersey already opened, the Holowesko Citadel rider. A lot of riders having to make a big effort to try and manage this, and we're starting to see more riders distanced. Dan Pearson still hanging on in the middle of the group. It's a solid job indeed for the Aqua Blue man. Still very much involved here. Astana have 2 riders in there at the moment. Trek Segafredo, I think 2, maybe 3. Bahrain Merida with a couple of riders. And Pro Conti squads certainly well in evidence. Peter Weening, I do believe that is, for the Rompot squad. In the orange with the black band across the chest, or at least we'd see all the black band if he hadn't unzipped it halfway. And this is an elimination process. It's riders not quite alone with their thoughts. They've got some company, but it's about being able to suffer, being able to take as much of this pain. Novak towards the back at the moment. Costa for the Colombian team. They were setting so much of the Ruben Acosta, that is, for the Bicicletas strongman squad. The camera picks out Peter Weening. Well, what a class act he is. He's in the swan song of a very impressive career, but he's capable of delivering World Tour success. He's taken a stage victory in the Tour de Suisse in recent seasons, but it's Kozataev suffering now to follow this tempo. Kozataev towards the back in the blue of the Astana squad, just in front of Jonathan Laster of the Caja Rural team, who is also looking. And it's a busy style, but I suggest that he's starting to feel the pinch a little bit, and given that well, the gradient will ease, so he may well last until the last couple of kilometers. He and all the others, it may be a decent sized group, but they're placing big demands on these riders for as long as possible, and that's it's an impressive display of resources from the Trek Segafredo squad to place as much faith as they are in their climbers today. So it's a much pared down group at the front, with 17.5 kilometers remaining on this third stage of the Tour of Croatia. That's what awaits them. We're heading in above the tree line. We've still got 17 kilometers to go.
And we've only got 15 riders in this front group. Nicholas Egg is doing a fantastic job here with Brambilla. We had an attack a little bit earlier on by Suitsu, but from Bahrain Merida, but he's decided to kind of knock it off, and Nicholas Egg just setting a good tempo here. So 15 riders with still 17 kilometers to go. How long can Nicholas Egg keep going until you know, at this tempo? Because I'm sure, you know, a lot of riders are happy just kind of sitting on the wheels for the time being, but there's also a few riders thinking of possibly, you know, attacking for the win. Not just the win, but possibly also taking the general classification.
Enrico Barbin, it's not a bad finisher on his day. Is Barbin on the back on the right hand side for Bardiani CSF, and he's, well, that's one pin pulled, isn't it? Kozataev for the Astana squad, Kazakh rider, has realised that it's just not up to that. He doesn't really want the attention of the camera. Some of the riders do like the attention of the camera as much as possible. When you just decided that you've got to cry enough is enough for one day, it's not the time that you want the attention, is it?
Well, it was a steady tempo there, so I think he must have been at his limit for a long period of time there. And you know, because Nicholas Egg is just sitting at a hard tempo. There was no attacks going, but unfortunately for the Astana rider there, it was just a little bit too much in the red there that you know, pulled the pin. And you know, when you're going back, when you're feeling that bad, that you don't want any of the TV cameras on. So 14 riders still in this front group, but tremendous effort being done by the young rider from Trek Segafredo.
Jonathan Astor's not enjoying this much, is he? His head has been bobbing from left to right, his shoulders rocking. He's more like a boxer than a cyclist at the moment, but he's trying to punch above his weight. His weight is not exactly significant. We're in amongst the climbers. Niklas Egg continuing to set an almost unrelenting tempo that is causing a lot of riders pain. .5 kilometers remaining on this stage to the summit, heading up to Sveti Jure. A mere 134 kilometers for the day, but a mere 27, make that 28 and a bit kilometers of climbing at the back end. Everything that has preceded it has served as merely a warm-up. It's a great punchy style, isn't it, from Jonathan Lastra. He's continuing to endure, his shoulders hunched, his head bobbing around the place, sunglasses on the back of his neck, barely registering that fact at this moment. Dan Pearson, sitting 3 from the back, looks well in control of his effort at the moment, as best you can tell. That's sometimes the thing about professional riders, they look so good.
Just a coming together there of Brambilla and Eisenhardt, but 14 riders in front. The only rider I haven't got is the rider sitting in second place from the Meridiana Cayman team, but I can confirm that Barry and Merida have got Switzu and Novak in there, Trek Segafredo, Nicholas Egg and Gianluca Brambilla. And then we have Astana, have got Giric, Caruao, Lastra. Then we have Gazprom with Nish, Dan Pearson, who we've already mentioned, from Aqua Blue Sports, Peter Winning from Rompot, Taylor Eisenhardt from Holoescu, Barbin of Bardiani, Pogacar from Ljubljana, and Acosta from the Bicicleta Strongman, the Colombian team. The only rider I haven't ID'd yet, I think it could be in fact Banachek, but I just need to confirm that.
So down to 14 riders from the initial 129 that started the day's events. We had one non-finisher, Alafaci from Trek Segafredo, crashing earlier on. So down to 128, hitting the bottom of this finishing hill. And that very quickly whittled down to this select group of superstar climbers. 15.8 kilometers to go. Well, how many significant climbs would we see in stage races? Would probably only be starting at this point, when in actual fact we've already had 12 kilometers of climbing. So it just is one that goes on and on and on and on, and there's going to be a few more twists and turns in the road before we get to the top of the climb at Sveti Jure. 1762 meters by the time we get to the top, and still Lastra continues to endure. So maybe I've done him something of a disservice. Maybe he's in better form than I expected, although sitting right on the back is never a smart thing to do, and there's a clear illustration of exactly why that's not the right thing to do, because Bokathar from the Ljubljana Gusto Zarum squad just has a little look over his shoulder, and that's always telltale. He's wondering how many riders are behind him. It's just one. Just for a moment the gradient eases a little while, and he resists, and he'll hang on for just as long as he can. Signals aren't so good from that man. Niklas Egg, it's a superb effort, isn't it? It really is, just sitting there kilometre after kilometre, not asking a single thing, not asking anyone else to come up and do it. Not that too many would be keen to do it. The 23-year-old Dane making a name for himself, stepping up to World Tour level. This is his first season at this level, having come from continental level with Team Virtue Cycling. String of strong results without too many victories last season, including second in Kreisbrei's Elites, which is an important development race, isn't it? Often the riders that come through that race go on to great careers. Third overall in the Tour de l'Avenir, which is the granddaddy really of of development races, so third in that event.
He's doing a very good job. I thought he might have been given a bit more of an opportunity today, but Brambilla must be feeling pretty good. But Egg has been doing pretty much all the work at the front, and doing a very good job at that.
Both are starting to feel the pinch. Disappearing out the back. Well, not entirely disappearing. He's not giving up on it. He's going to hang on as long as he can. I suspect he knows this hill and knows that there is a little levelling to come that gives brief respite, and will also offer the opportunity to at least get closer to the top of the hill before he has to step away and leave the leading lights to contend for victory. Now starting to show the effects of his effort. Finished third, as I say, in the Tour de l'Avenir towards the back end of last season, and of course we remember that the new Team Sky superstar Egan Bernal took that victory, so you'd have to say it was a strong development year.
Yeah, still starting to break up a little bit further back, and it's breaking from the attacking from the front. Novak there in the triple. The rider sitting second place is in fact from the Adri Mobile team, Radoslav Rogina, number 171. So he's riding well. He's been riding in the kind of second place for a long period of time. So one by one, this front group is starting to whittle down, but Nicolas Egg still doing a very good job. Regina just sitting in second place there. Eisenhardt pulling faces. Brambilla looks very comfortable for the time being, but slowly but surely, instead of the attacks from the front, one by one they're dropping off the back. Yeah,
Domen Novak has to cry enough, and that's another rider that Jonathan Lastra finds himself having to ride around and close a gap, so he's making big efforts to stay in the position he's in. The man sitting second in line here is Radoslav Rogina. As Brian has mentioned, he's a mere 39 years of age. Eisenhardt is gone. Eisenhardt, yeah.
He was pulling faces there, and these riders are staying in the red for a considerable amount of time, and this just going bang. This climb is having a real effect. Still 14.5 kilometres to go, and when you see riders doing that, it's just a steady tempo he's riding, but Eisenhardt just went from about third wheel bang, and he'll take a while to recover.
Yeah, well, he try and recover, but it's so difficult to get your breath back on these climbs. You've got to pedal to maintain momentum, so very often all goes backwards. Very difficult situation to recover. Brambilla has a little look around just to see.
So easy, Brambilla. He's just sitting there. Switzer as well is in there, and Giric looks okay for Astana as well, but tremendous effort by Egg here. He's looking behind. Peter Winning, it's kind of hanging in there, but for me, Brambilla looks super strong.
Nicolas Egg's efforts, could they be rewarded by his teammate Gianluca Brambilla, the Italian rider, sitting fourth or fifth in line at the moment, and second in line, as I was saying. He's 39 years young. He's the oldest man in this bike race. There are a couple of veterans in there, including Peter Weening, sitting sixth rider in the orange and black colours, well into his 36th year. Nicolas Egg gets a well-earned drink, and that little just that moment taken has allowed Eisenhardt to recover. So he's, just by easing off the pedals for a moment, was able to get enough recovery to survive, and the gradient has eased a little bit.
I think that helped him. Yeah, that really helped him. It came at the right time, because if it had continued on, I think he would have lost time quite quickly. But the pressure with the front from the Trek Segafredo rider almost split this group in two, but now we've got a group of 12 at front. A couple of riders have been distanced in the last kind of couple of kilometres, but a strong effort by Nicolas Egg from Trek Segafredo.
Still 13.5 kilometres remaining on this absolutely epic climb. It is a beast, isn't it? Up to Sveti Jure at the end of stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia, and man of the match so far in this event. He has announced himself on the world stage. Nicolas Egg has sat at the front for kilometre after kilometre. Rider after rider has been dispensed with. One or two have got back on in this little flat section that precedes the final push to the top, which is going to be very informative, I can tell you, because it is just that bit steeper than everything that we've had so far. The final few kilometres at an average of over 10%. Nicolas Egg steadies himself and sets himself for the next big effort as the gradient starts to bite once more. Regina on his wheel at 39, the oldest rider in the bike race. Brambilla sitting next up, the Trek teammate of the man on the front. Brambilla has a pedigree. He's taken victory at the very top level in Giro d'Italia. Siutsu is still well placed as well. He's a rider who knows exactly how to place this one. Looks like Novak is the second Bahrain Merida rider, just trying to make his way back in. So it looks like that would suggest that it's the pace has eased ever so slightly, and this is a little bit of a phony war before the final push.
Yes, indeed. He was in the cars there, and sometimes you can get a little bit of aid when you're in the cars, and with that kind of respite as well. But I don't think he'll manage to make it back in because Nicolas Egg is setting a good tempo here. Still just under 13 kilometres to go, and starting to increase in the tempo now and the gradient. And really impressed by Nicolas Egg here, because he's been at the front for a considerable amount of time now, and the riders have been shed one by one out the back of the group. Eisenhardt is recovered, but how much is he recovered? Because he was sitting third wheel, and now he's kind of hanging on the back. But for me, Brambilla looks super strong. Suitsu will want to do something for Bahrain Merida. I think everybody else is just kind of fingers crossed and hoping that the attacks don't start too early, because they might be punished.
Yeah, Suitsu is 35 years young as well, so there are quite a few riders of pedigree and experience indeed in this group. Arguino we've mentioned, and Novak, as you suggested, Brian, is going to struggle to get back in there now. They're back at their work, and the gradient is not being kind to Doman Novak of the Bahrain Merida squad. It's up to his Belarusian teammates, Konstantin indeed Siutsu. He's looking to leave it up to Trek Segafredo for as long as possible. Rider in orange is Peter Weening, as we've mentioned. Rider in blue just behind Weening is Artem Nich from the Gazprom Rozvrelo squad, and he's putting together a very impressive ride.
He's a strong rider, good time trialist as well. He's kind of hanging on a little bit. Just noticed towards the back as well, the Bardiani CSF rider Barbin is starting to struggle a little bit. So still, we keep on saying many kilometres still to go here. But for me, the rider doing the ride of the day has to be Nicolas Egg. And you can just see a little bit further back in the group now. Lastra just kind of hanging on. You see the kind of rocking movements of his body. He isn't relaxed. Niche just in front is kind of hanging on a little bit. We've already mentioned that Barbin has been distanced, and so has Eisenhardt been distanced for Holoescu now. So the tempo just been set there. It's a hard enough tempo to shed even more riders out the back, so it does look as if we have got 10 riders now. The further up this climb, one by one they're getting dropped, so a tremendous effort here by Nicolas Egg. And Brambilla, the pressure must be on his shoulders now to try and deliver this.
Old style road surface as well, isn't it? So many big stage races, they lay a ribbon of beautiful new tarmac on these big mountains whenever the races come to town. But this, puts you in mind of old style cycling, the epic pioneer adventures. Quite an unsealed road. This one, it's still a pretty impressive surface, but you can tell that there aren't too many bike riders, people, vehicles, whatever, that make the trip or make the journey up this road. Nicolas Egg is making a journey that none of the riders in this group are ever going to forget. Regina in his wheel, looking in control of his effort at the moment. looks pretty solid in there. What about Jonathan Lastra, who's been all over the bike like a cheap suit since pretty much the bottom of the hill, but he's hanging on in there. For how much longer, one worries. And we haven't mentioned too often, just in passing, Dan Pearson. What a great job he's doing, the rider from Cardiff with the Aqua Blue squad.
He's done a very good ride in this race before, so really no surprise. I thought he would be there and thereabouts, so it does look good for him for a top 10 performance here, which, you know, is good for Dan Pearson and Aqua Blue Sports. He does look comfortable enough, and you know, I think if this was a kilometre to go, the riders would be happy with this. But still, 11.5 kilometres to go to the finishing line, and it, you know, we're starting to get the hardest part of this climb. So it is a long one, 27.7 kilometres, and just think of the damage that's been done. And you know, a lot of riders have been distanced, and leaving 10 riders to fight out the stage win, and potentially the stage one, and could be the, you know, one of the main stages that is going to determine this year's winner of the Tour of Croatia.
Yeah, we've got an absolute belter for you on Saturday as well. The Queen stage, that's got some ore category climbing, some second cat, third cat hills in it as well. So that one, this is going to establish the group that will challenge for overall honours, and that one will put the stamp on it. Tell us exactly who's going to wear the crown at the on Sunday afternoon. We've got a couple of sprint opportunities as well, and they've been far from straightforward, have they, on the first couple of days? So it's all entertaining stuff, set against the extraordinary backdrop of the Adriatic coast and the one or two hills inland that are presented to us as well. And Nicholas Eggs still sits on the front. He's forgotten anyone else is there. It's just an amazing job being done. Jonathan Lastra still punching tickets at the back. Still his head and his shoulders rocking.
Well, half the group are hanging on, and you know, the other half are, of course, Nicholas Egg doing a job. The other half are thinking about possibly, you know, what they can do, whether they attack, whether they, you know, where they're going to attack. Are they just going to kind of sit? What's going to happen if Nicholas Egg decides to kind of swing over? So the kind of 3-4 riders at the back, I think, are just kind of happy to sit there and follow the whales, and you know, happy that they're actually there, because I think, you know, we're looking at the top 10, barring any incident or anything like this. The top 10 of this race is just in front of us now, so everybody will know this, that this is the numbers. And you know, of course, you can go and fight on another day, and anything can happen in races, but with just under 11 kilometres to go, these are the 10 strongest riders in the bike race today. But the strongest, or one of the strongest, seems to be Nicholas Egg, who's been sitting at the front pretty much throughout this climb, setting a tempo that one by one these riders have been blown off the back of this group.
What an absolute epic this climb is, with 10.8 kilometres, make that 10 kilometres
to go. That's what you want to see, don't you? We've already climbed a mountain and you see 10 kilometres to go.
Still tapping out a metronomic rhythm that is absolutely excruciating for so many riders in this group. I'm just not sure how much longer Jonathan Lastra can hang on. It's just about holding on to it. Gianluca Brambilla has to react to that one. Siutsu has decided that Nicholas Egg has done his extraordinary work, and it's Brambilla that raids a monster gear, and now we're going to get the instruction. Who's been saving it? Who's got something to offer? And at the moment, Siutsu has set himself to the task of eliminating a few riders. Pearson looks like he's missed the boat here as well, and Brambilla pops in a big way, and that's a surprise, isn't it? Looked like he was in control of that one, but not able to manage a big acceleration.
He looked comfortable. It's, you know, Brambilla can climb okay, but you know, when you've got kind of pure climbers like Switzer, it was always going to be difficult. So, you know, obviously Switzer decided with 10 kilometres to go, this was the time to go. Brambilla looked comfortable, but when it came to it, he had to put it in a big gear to try and close the gap, and unfortunately wasn't able to do that. You see the attack here on the left hand side, a strong attack. Brambilla you know, goes straight after him, puts the gear up, and you know, he's struggling now. He just put the gear up there, and as soon as you put the gear up, he was always going to struggle. And now we see Regina coming across to him from Adria Mobile, And so just looking across, Peter Winning there, and also the Astana rider Giric coming across now. So looking at the way things are panning out now, Suitsu is the man to beat now.
Regina goes to the front, just tries to hold what we have, I think is his thinking, as Peter Winning just winds his way back onto the tail of Suitsu, who kicked this one off. The Bahrain Merida rider sitting in second place, and it's a technical enough little downhill section, and this is that moment that I mentioned. The average for the next few kilometers is just a barely over 1%. Then it's the final 5 kilometers where it really ramps up, and that's where the battle will be rejoined. At the moment, it's about trying to hang on and not make it too easy for those riders to get back in. Could it be that Brambilla made a bit of a tactical error in how in the gear that he selected at that moment, or in the way that he reacted to that attack?
I think, like everybody else, there's a few people on the limit there, and when Suitsu attacked. Just when we're looking at, it's okay having a poker face and things like that and looking good, but when the pressure's on, it really hurts. And after all that riding by Nicholas Egg, it's now difficult for Trek Segafredo to come back to the front of this race. We went from 10 to 4 now, and possibly 5, because we still have the Colombian rider trying to get up there. But Suitsu, he's already attacked twice now in this climb. He does look good, and obviously Bahrain Merida, this is a kind of local race for them. A lot of Croatian and Slovenian staff members and things like that. The general manager is in fact Slovenian, so they want to really win this race and keep the title that they won last year.
Rides a deceptively big gear, doesn't he, Peter Weaning? And I think that's why it took perhaps him a little bit longer to get back onto the wheel of the other riders when they attacked a few moments ago. Suitsu back on the front now, Regina in his wheel, and Weaning doesn't want to take this one up. He wants to leave it up to others to show what they're made of.
Well, Suitsov does look as if he is the strongest. Regina, obviously would love to try and do something here. Peter Weaning, he knows that there's another rider that's stronger than him. Astana rider Giric is, he reacted to it, but he wanted to let Suitsov in there, but Suitsov decided that if still a long way to go, 8.4 kilometers, then you have to do some riding with us.
Well, Suitsov finished in 6th place on this equivalent stage 12 months ago, behind Christian Durasek. Weaning back on the front. So they're going to share the tempo. The gradient is such that it rewards this kind of shared pacemaking. More like a flat road than a hilly one at the moment. Giric. Evgeny Giric, 10th overall, 18 seconds back, set to profit here. And after all their tremendous work, the Trek Segafredo squad find themselves unrepresented in the group of 4 up front. Is there any recovery for Nicholas Egg? Can he conceivably get back up here? Where exactly is Gianluca Brambilla? Well, they're quite a way behind. Now, the effort being shared, Regina goes to the front. And 39 years young, been 2nd overall in this race in the past. An event that suits him, not just a hill. Behind, we have Egg trying to respond. Pearson is with him, and they're trying perhaps for Egg to think about trying to bring Gianluca Brambilla back to this group. Over half a minute the gap, though.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult now for them to go. They're kind of playing catch up. The strongest riders will always be towards the 4. When Suitsu went on the attack from Bahrain Merida, he took with him the strongest riders that were left, putting in the neutral service car. So I don't think it will be possible for these riders to come back that are in this second group. We've gone from 15 to 10 to 4. And these are the 4 riders that are going to battle out the stage 1 and the I think the overall victory in the Tour of Croatia. And if I was a betting man, Costa for Barry and Merida would be the strongest here, and you know, the other riders will just be thinking about trying to save a little bit. They know they're in a good position. They've made a big effort now on this climb. They've already ridden 20 kilometres uphill to this point, and you know, they'll be thinking that trying to save a little bit, because they know that Konstantin Svitsov will be attacking soon again, because he'll want to solo to victory.
He's looking good at the moment. He's looking good on the front of the group. Radoslav Rogina just is about to take it up. 39-year-old for the Adria Mobile squad. 29th overall, 26 seconds back. All of these riders moving up on overall. While Dan Pearson found himself distanced by the leading group of 4, just missing out on that attack. He tried manfully to try and make it from the back of the group across, but just that initial movement from Konstantin Svitsov was enough to separate Dan Pearson from the front 4. Well, now he's left the chasing group, and he's going to try and ride across a gap of 31 seconds solo. Still, there's an excellent opportunity for a very strong finish for the young Brit, the Welsh rider with the Aqua Blue Sport team. Is producing a very, very solid performance indeed. Is he going to be able to make any inroads? Still 6.4 kilometres remaining, and the question is, have any of those riders in that front group shot their bolt? Have they made an effort that perhaps they're going to pay for? Well, the helicopter shot tells us the precise difference between these 4. Regina once more on the front, winning in his wake. Gidic for the Astana squad in blue. And the man who kicked it all off, Svitsov, the Belarusian with the Bahrain Merida squad, just takes a drink. Looks very much in control at the moment, as indeed all 4 of these riders. Evgeny Gidic hits the front, the 21-year-old, youngest of all in this group, the young Kazakh rider. Won the Tour of Thailand last year, and has won stages of Tour of Qinghai Lake, Tour of Iran, 3rd on GC in the Tour of Korea. For an Asian rider, no surprise, most of his top results have happened in Asia. Well, he's on the Europe Tour here now, with 1 point HC level, and Astana have a rider of some calibre. So we head into these final 5.5 kilometres. The chasers behind, over half a minute in arrears, include both of the Trek Segafredo riders. After all that great work, they find themselves distanced. One man in between, Dan Pearson trying to make the junction. Looks like they could get, that gap is a little bit less than 31 seconds now.
Yeah, on a climb like this, it looks a little bit foreshortened. They're saying 17 seconds now. I think there is a general easement in the front now. Everybody knows that Svitsov for Barry Merida is the strongest. It's kind of only a matter of time before he attacks again, because the pace is slowed a little bit at the front, and they'll know that these riders are trying to come up from behind. We have got Dan Pearson, Egg and Brambilla from Trek Segafredo, and Acosta from the Colombian team trying to make it up. The neutral service trying to get by here, kind of panicking a little bit, but I just think that I'm not too sure these riders will come back to the front. Pearson trying as hard as he can and getting close, but the neutral service car is behind. But just as that happens, we see the attack starting again.
Well, that's inevitable, isn't it? It had to happen because they were just looking around, and, well, Peter Weening has decided to, enough is enough. Attack is the best form of defence. Found himself in a chasing position the last time that Svitsov went, and the tall, rangy figure of the Dutch rider with Rampot squad, the Peter Weening, former World Tour level rider, moved down to Pro Continental level. Many might have thought that it was just a retirement package for him. It's been anything but that. He really has made a massive contribution to Team Rampot, not just with the experience that he could bring to the effort, but also in terms of showing the younger riders exactly what he's made of. He's 37 years of age now, won the Tour of Poland overall in 2013, Tour of Norway a couple of years ago. He's got a couple of stage wins in the Giro d'Italia, stage win in the Tour de France. Make a list. It's been an excellent career. Can he continue his accumulation of important victories and add to his palmares? Well, if he's going to do it, he's just got a mere 5 kilometres left.
Yeah, long way still, and still plenty can happen, and it does look as if these riders are going to finish in ones by the top. These are the next three. Still Switzer, number 2. He hasn't made a big effort now. He's already attacked twice. But I think maybe just kind of biding his time a little bit. Peter Winning from Rompot, strong rider. You've already rhymed off his palmares. And, you know, he rides a big gear. It's the same style the whole time. And, you know, obviously looking to have another one here. But I still think that... you know, Switzer has got something up his sleeve here, and maybe just be kind of using these other 2 riders with him before he makes a final effort.
Now 9 seconds the advantage. It's a slender one for a very slender man, Peter Weening, who's well, just set himself the task of trying to hold on clear of the others. Switzer, after all his strength and his display of strength, is now just starting to show signs of weakness. Or is that just something of a poker face? Is he trying to surprise everyone? Now the gradient really starts to grip for Peter Weening, but he's alone in his effort, and they're showing a gap of coming up on a quarter minute for the tall Dutchman. He's delivered in the past, knows how to do it solo. Not recorded any significant results so far this year, but we're coming into that part of the year that really the sweet spot for the stage racers, and this is his time to shine. Syutsov behind with Regina picking it up. Gidic doesn't want to go around, and that's leaving a little bit of a gap. Instant response. Was it an instant response indeed from Syutsov? Maybe not quite as instant as he might have liked. Regina with a few bike lengths, looking good, but can he race across that gap? Can Syutsov respond? Signals at the moment. That's all about the old man, isn't it? 37 years of age, followed by a 39-year-old, followed by a rider well into his 30s as well. Syutsov, as Weening makes his way around just that single rusty guardrail to the right. It's old style bike racing, isn't it? And Weening is absolutely loving this one, feeling his way around the gradient, and it just levels a little bit, so he has to use a little bit of technical skill. Will this offer perhaps a minor respite and perhaps an opportunity for the chasers behind? Round a corner, and immediately it ramps up, then down again. This is a hill that it's tough to get a rhythm on, isn't it? The gap, though, is going up nicely for Peter Weening. He's finding a rhythm. A tall Dutch rider being chased down, but the gap is increasing. Gidic steps it up. Syutsov goes now. Regina, after his efforts, it took a little while for Syutsov to get back to him, and then he immediately attacked, and Gidic is caught out once more. Regina, having put it up to the others, now finds himself in the unwanted and the unloved chase position, and this little ramp here is a leg breaker. Weening through it a few moments ago, almost struggled to get the right gear on it, and Regina is really feeling his legs at the moment, perhaps feeling his years. Almost half a minute, and Weening, for all that low cadence, looks in fine form.
He's grinding up this climb, a style that's everyone to their own style, and he certainly has his own style in this climb. You know, most other climbers tend to use a kind of smaller climb and use smaller gears, but Peter Weening over the years has stuck by what works for him, and you know, good on him. He's got 24 seconds. I just thought it was only going to be a matter of time between Switsov going on the attack and trying to come after him. Does he have enough time to come back? Yeah, he does. And you know, he's a very experienced rider. He's already attacked twice. This is the third time he's attacked, and he's going to hunt down Peter Weening. And now inside 3 kilometres to go now. It's only 20 seconds.
Well, that gap is potentially closable, but it needs to start happening now. And just as I say, it is starting to happen. He's gained 4 seconds in the last 500 metres. But remember, the gradient is different for the riders depending on where they are on the hill. And as it looks just that little bit easier for Konstantin Syutsov, it's altogether more difficult looking, and that's enhanced and compounded that impression, of course, by the fact that they ride very different gears on the bike. Weaning perhaps a little bit more old school, a little bit more Eddie Merckx in style and character. Syutsov a little bit more towards the Sky mould of the high revving.
Well, he was with Team Sky, so but he's always been like that since I've known him. But you know, he'll know this climb. This is although the team are from Bahrain, registered team and things like that, but they're very much from this area, Croatian and Slovenian team, their staff, and you know, they'll know this. They'll know this climb. They'll know that it pitches up to 14% in bits towards the top, and I think that was in the back of the mind of Syutsov. But tell you what, Peter Winning put up a good fight here. He's still grinding away up this climb and getting ever so closer to this finishing line.
Managing the gap, isn't he? It's not coming down now. After that initial gain, it's just stabilised at 20 seconds. 2,800 metres of pain and suffering left for Peter Wening. He's in a familiar place. He's in the place he wants to be. He's in the Hurt Locker, and he is absolutely emptying it on this mountain. What a beast it is. 28 kilometres of just awesome tarmac laid out, running as a ribbon around the Sveti Ure, St. Ure, to give it its name. Another step down. There's barely room for a motorcycle and a couple of bike riders, let alone a car behind. Neutral service slots in behind. It's got to be encouraging for him. Neutral service taking the risk, you might say, to slot in, because there's not always that opportunity for the rider to for the car to come through past the rider. It's such a narrow road, so Syutsov, he gets up there, could well have to get around a rider. The gap down to 16, signs that there's a little bit of a gain. Still 2.5 kilometres remaining. It's yo-yoing a little bit, and that's a factor, I think, of the gradient, the way it's changing. Yeah,
we still have a battle. Peter Winning looking strong here. All the way up the climb, he was kind of grimacing, staying there, but that's just his style. While Brambilla was just sitting there, you know, looking pretty, but you know, when it came to that attack by Syutsov, he was distanced straight away. So we do have a battle. 2.4 kilometres to go, still 18 seconds between them, and for the time being, Peter Winning still winning this battle between himself and Syutsov.
It's one-on-one. It was 23 seconds when Konstantin Syutsov began his pursuit of the lone attacker, Peter Wening of the Netherlands. And now this man in second place, wearing dossard number 2, has a clear view. That's the lowest it's been, down to 15 seconds. Went from 23 down to 20, back up to 21, then down to 16, then back up to 18, now down to 15. Suffice it to say, it is a real one-on-one pursuit match at the moment. Still 2.1 kilometres remaining, but every 100 metres gained on the hill is 100 metres closer to glory for the Dutch star of the Roompot Nederlandse Lottery squad, Peter Wening, who steals the opportunity to have a little look over his shoulder. He's been in this position so many times before, and he's such a great rider to deliver a result. But look at that, Syutsov is now as close as he's been. It's as steep as it is, but he's as close, and that's going to give him a little bit of enhanced morale, I think. Less than 2 kilometres remaining on stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia for 2018. This craggy hillside has played host to an epic battle, and Peter Wening is almost at the end of his tether. He's almost at the end of the stage. So too Konstantin Syutsov is not going to give up yet. Another second gain by Wening through that left-hander as the gradient really stretched to its steepest point. Well over 10% in places, well over 14% in little sections, and an average of 10% in the last couple of kilometres. But it looks like Syutsov might just get back to him.
Yeah, that's the carrot in front, the Rompot rider in the orange winning, and he looks around, and Svitsov coming up slowly but surely, and I think it's a measured effort by Svitsov, and obviously coming very close to the kind of 1 kilometre to go, and it looks as if these two riders are going to come together. Svitsov just kind of looks around. I think he'll have maybe slightly more in the tank, and maybe another attack for the win, but this race is not over. As you've already said, we've still got a mountain stage to go. It's all about the stage today, and obviously there's bonus seconds of 10, 6 and 4 in the finishing line, but we've got another day, and if either of these two can just kind of limit the loss in the other one, then we're in for a battle between Winning and Svitsov for overall victory. But this has been an epic climb, an epic stage. Still not over. We're still 1.5 kilometres to go, but I think Svitsov is just kind of waiting and waiting, and Winning is just going to ease back as well.
Oh, and he's going to attack. Svitsov straight over the top. He wasn't going to hang around. He was going to try and put the final nail in the coffin of Peter Winning. He won't catch an old stager like Winning out just that easily, but it was a nicely placed attack from Svitsov, and the right thing to do, I feel. Different approach through that previous hairpin, gaining and maintaining the momentum for Svitsov. Winning, though, is able to respond. We've got a match race inside the final 1300.
Svette Jure.
De volgende bocht is de derde haarspeelsbocht. En daar hangt ook de fot van de laatste kilometer.
Ze zijn weer bij elkaar.
You could always see that Svitsov was just kind of easing back, slowly closing the gap. He was thinking about that, that attack as soon as he came up. But I think of the finishers, I don't think Svitsov will want to bring Winning into the finish, because Winning has got a little bit of a stronger finish. So Svitsov wants to distance the man in orange behind, who are two different styles. You can see Svitsov just pedalling away, while Peter Winning is just kind of grinding up here.
Well, everybody's got an optimum cadence, and these two riders clearly have very different ones. So the opposite ends of the spectrum, really. And Svitsov just weaves across the road and tries to hoodwink Winning into going, and hoodwink he does indeed, but in a very different fashion, because immediately attacks, puts a couple of bike lengths under the kite. 1,000 metres remaining, still a few moments of drama left in this stage, and Peter Winning finds himself having to react once more when he rides back onto the wheel again. Will he be tempted to attack? Well, Svitsov's going to keep the hammer down. 1,000 metres. Here is we've had the big inflatable thing to indicate exactly what 1,000 metres is. Now here it comes, is it?
Svitsov needs to, if he wants to win this stage, he needs to keep the pressure on now. It does look as if Peter Winning, this is not going to help Svitsov, it's actually going to help Peter Winning. I thought he had Winning on the ropes a little bit there, so if Svitsov wants to win this stage, he has to attack and keep the pressure on Peter Winning.
Third and fourth in line, they're not too far behind, are they, as Regina and Gidic unite in their efforts to get back on terms. They're certainly going to be well placed overall. Svitsov with a couple of bike lengths advantage on Peter Winning. Is Winning just leaving a little gap, so he's aware of what's and able to react immediately. Go to the inside of the hairpin. The gradient can be just that bit higher, and especially for a rider riding a bigger gear, it can be tough to react, but Winning takes that risk.
Fascinating stuff there, but coming up to about 400 metres to go, and Svitsov just didn't want to lead this one out. I think Peter Winning is starting to struggle a bit. This is playing into the hands of Peter Winning here. I think Svitsov should have kept the pressure on and kept going all the way to the finishing line.
Yeah, they have to think about just a little bit more than the stage honours as well. There is the overall general classification, and these two riders could have it between them at the end of the day if they can continue to press home their advantage. They're not going to do that. I don't think there's any sense or any chance that they could perhaps propel the other two riders into contention for stage victory as well. Well, it looks like Svitsov's going to have the dubious honour of getting to lead this one out. Peter Winning in the orange just behind him. It's been a really, really terrific battle up the hill, and each of these riders neither wants to give in. Only victory will count for these. They're not thinking about general classification. They've got to go all the way up to the top, and it is an absolute leg-breaking finish. Is it going to be Konstantin Svitsov, who's attacked so many times on this hill? Is it going to be Peter Winning, who was out solo for several kilometres as well in recent times? It's Svitsov that's going to get to lead it out, but lead it out on a very, very steep gradient. Weening is all over the bike. Syutsov now gets out of the saddle and starts to make his finishing effort. Weening is, crawling all over the front wheel, trying to maintain momentum. We're inside the final 50 metres. Weening is staying with him, but can he find a way around? I think Syutsov is going to survive to take the stage victory. What an epic contest it was, and it is a stage victory for Bahrain Merida, courtesy of Konstantin Syutsov, as Peter Weening barely makes it across the line before he grinds to a halt, and that was an absolutely epic effort from all involved, as Regina's going to have to give best in the final position on the podium to Yevgeny Gidic of the Astana squad, who is putting a little bit of daylight and staying in the general classification hunt, as the young Kazakh makes a name for himself in amongst the older men, the more mature men in the lineup in Tour of Croatia. Has a little look over his shoulder. You're secure in third place. It's a good effort. 34.7 kilometers an hour, the average speed for the winner today on what was very much one for the climbers. Gidic across the line, but Syutsov is already well into recovery mode and planning for his victory speech, and indeed for the defence of the leader's jersey in the remaining 3 stages. Well, what an effort.
Quite a brutal finish here, and they'll be calling this the Mont Ventoux of Croatia.
Well, he's trying to get something of a warm down, isn't he? And a little shake of the head as if to say that was a massive effort, but it was an effort well rewarded, as Syutsov of Belarus takes the victory. 35 years of age, late of Dimension Data and Team Sky, in the second year of a 2-year deal with the Bahrain Merida squad. And this was the moment when he made his final push for glory. And Peter Weening, after his brave resistance and his moments of attack, well, just hadn't got the strength to find a way around. Indeed, in the last few metres, Syutsov able to stretch clear and gain a few seconds to add to the bonus seconds that will put him clear of Weening on the overall general classification. Wow, what a super battle it was.
Oh, look, brutal. I think Switzer knew this climb a bit better than Weening, and managed his effort a little bit better. It wasn't much between them in the end, but you know, Weening absolutely emptied himself. He went early, but Switzer here really happy with that win. A lot of pressure on him to deliver, but what a climb! You know, they'll be coming up here for, you know, the next, you know, half an hour, I would suspect. And congratulations from the team there. But every rider that's crossing this line is just coming to a halt, and what a brutal climb. As we said just before there, the Croatian equivalent of Mont Ventoux.
Yes, this one's set to go down in history, isn't it? And Syutsov has conquered it. And they were level on time at the beginning of the day, by the way. Konstantin Syutsov 26 seconds in arrears. Peter Weening at a similar remove from the lead on overall, so that means that the difference between them on the hill, plus an extra 4 seconds gained on the bonus from Konstantin Syutsov, is what's between the first two on general classification when we get the confirmation. Third man over the hill was, I think, just maybe a smidge less than a minute in arrears. Gidic. And every rider that comes across almost comes to a grinding halt. Good recovery by Lastra, wasn't it, after his difficulties on the hill. There was Novak just making his way across just behind. He will already be aware that his teammate has taken the stage victory. We look out over the Croatian coast and pick up the hills in the inland as well. The hazy sunshine descends over the region. And it's crystal clear up at the top for those riders. The air will be cold on their lungs. They'll be gasping for breath at somewhat reduced oxygen levels. This Barbin from the Bardiani CSF squad. What a super ride he's done. Indeed, every rider that makes it to the top of this hill, having made the big efforts, well, deserves a round of applause. Here's confirmation of the provisional finishing order. It was certainly Konstantin Syutsov getting the stage victory ahead of Peter Weening. 4 seconds between them, plus 4 seconds gained on bonus. Gidic, Regina, Egg, Pearson, Brambilla, Acosta, Neek and Lastra, your top 10. Man of the match, I think, Egg in 5th place. Well, the scene out over the finishing climb to Sveti Jure at the end of relatively short 134 kilometers, but what an epic it was at the back end. Saved all the good stuff. This climb is set to feature in many an edition of an important international bike race from now on. I wonder if the Tour de France maybe make a visit to try and find a big mountain like this. They like to start races in different countries. They don't often go looking for hills of this character and style. Syutsov knows all about it. As you said, Brian, he will have been made aware, and I suspect he will have recce'd this one. It all paid off in spades, produced a perfect athletic performance. We'll be back to get a reaction after this.
De Radio Veronica Ochtendshow met Giel. Morgenochtend vanaf 6 uur.
Well, we're also getting our breath back after that extraordinary display of athleticism and resilience by Konstantin Syutsov and pretty much everyone on this mountain this afternoon. Still plenty of riders to come up the hill, but here's the overall general classification, with Syutsov now with an 8-second advantage over Peter Weening. Gidic sitting not handily placed, 47 seconds back. Regina Egg in 5th place. Dan Pearson steps up and moves up to 6th overall. Brambilla, Costa, Neek and Lastra all within the top 10. Oh, what a day. Seems like such a long time ago since the early break were mopped up, and it was a big bunch that went to the bottom of this hill, but that was whittled down. And eventually Syutsov prevailed for a super stage victory. More great bike racing to come here on the home of cycling. The Tour of the Alps Stage 5 coming tomorrow. It's 1 p.m. if you're in Britain or Ireland, and Tour of Croatia coming after that. Stage 4. Starigrad to Krivenica. If it's anything like as exciting as today's action, it's going to be pretty impressive stuff. So, been a great day out. It's gone the way of Konstantin Syutsov, from myself, Declan Quigley, and Brian Smith alongside. We'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, it's goodbye for now.